Do you have an estimate of how many lives the Iron Dome and the other Israeli defense systems have saved?
Well, I think I would be exaggerating if I would say thousands of lives. And when we're talking about lives, the devastation that we saw in Israel, or the potential devastation for sure, it is not only the one person that dies for it. It's those that are being wounded. It's the second circle of the families and the influence of it on the Israeli society. So for sure, thousands of Israelis could be affected by the rockets and missiles that were shot toward Israel. And of course, we are in a much better situation that we could be potentially because of the Israeli defense systems that were applied during this war.
Perfect. Måske har du hørt om det israelske missilforsvarssystem The Iron Dome, jernkuplen. Men det er kun et af Israels luftforsvarssystemer. Det nyeste hedder Iron Beam. Det skyder missiler og droner ned med laser. Det er taget i brug, og det virker. Israel har verdens mest avancerede missilforsvarssystem, og det er der en god grund til. Alene siden den 7. oktober 2023 har Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthierne i Yemen og islamiske grupper i Syrien og Irak affyret over 30.000 raketter, missiler og droner mod israelske byer. Det er lidt en anden verden end et par uidentificerede droner over Københavns Lufthavn. Israel har inden for de sidste 2 år været mål for de 2 største ballistiske missilangreb i verdenshistorien. Men 98% nåede ikke deres mål. De blev skudt ned, inden de kunne gøre skade på civilbefolkning og infrastruktur. Dagens gæst ved en masse om det israelske missilforsvarssystem. Han er nemlig israelsk general og tidligere øverstkommanderende for netop det israelske luftforsvar. Og det var ham, som implementerede The Iron Dome i Israel. Han er i øjeblikket i Danmark og har sagt ja til at give mig og dig et indblik i det mest avancerede luftforsvar i verden, og hvorfor det er nødvendigt. Velkommen til Borgerlig Tabloid, podcasten, hvor vi vender aktuelle emner fra et borgerligt perspektiv. Mit navn er Joachim B. Olsen, og jeg er debatredaktør her på BT. Welcome, General Daron Gavish.
Happy to be here.
I'm happy that you're here. It's quite an opportunity to have someone like you on our show. Can you give the listeners a brief history of your career in the IDF?
Well, I was serving for 30 years in the Israeli Air Force, and within the Israeli Air Force, the Israeli Air Defense. My last job was the commander of the Israeli Air and Missile Defense, and I had the privilege to introduce the Iron Dome into the defense of Israel. It was in 2011. Since there, I was working also for the Israeli Ministry of Defense. I was here in Europe, the senior representative of the Israeli Ministry of Defense. And the last 10 years, I am in the private sector, working with Israeli startups regarding to issues which are much broader than defense, like healthcare, things like automotive and other interesting stuff. And it is it's very interesting to be part of the high-tech ecosystem in Israel, so I can't complain.
Oh, that's good. I think a lot of Danes have actually heard about the Iron Dome, not only from the recent war with Hamas in Gaza, but also previous attacks on Israel by numerous terrorist organizations. But could you elaborate a little bit on it? How does it work?
Well, maybe just kind of a background of how it started, and really the real trigger for it was what we call the Second Lebanon War in 2006. Mm-hmm. In 2006, the Hezbollah shot toward Israel more than 4,000 rockets, mm-hmm. Mainly to the northern part of Israel, but not only. Back then, we didn't have any way of intercepting them. And of course, they made damage to Israel and people were hurt by it. And we understood that we cannot allow ourselves to be unprotected. Therefore, there was a decision to develop an Israeli system, Israeli-made system. And there was, by the way, a debate, what kind of system are we going to build? Would it be a kinetic one? Maybe laser was already discussed back then.
What does kinetic mean?
Kinetic means missiles that kinetically would intercept, like when you're saying kinetic, you mean bullet, missiles, those things that you send into the air. But already back then, there was a discussion, are we going to maybe go with the laser? And there was a big debate inside Israel. There was a committee, and after the day made a decision to go with the Iron Dome because the laser was not mature back then, and now we could say that it was a good decision. And the first time that the Iron Dome was applied into the defense of Israel was 5 years later, 7th of April 2011, 2 Grads that were shot by the Hamas from the Gaza Strip toward a city by the name of Ashkelon in the south part of Israel. Those were the first interceptions of the Iron Dome, and the rest is literally history, because since then the Iron Dome intercepted thousands of rockets that were shot toward Israel, saving a lot of Israeli lives.
How does it work? Because it almost seems a little bit like magic. That it's like hitting a bullet with a bullet, right?
Yeah, well, you're right. And by the way, when at the beginning, like I always compare the Iron Dome to a startup. And the difference between developing Iron Dome and doing other systems is that if, for example, you want to purchase an airplane, so you go some other place, you see how do they fly the airplane, you purchase it to yourself, and you know how to do it. You could do it with this, with tank, with other means. But here, in a way, we had to invent the wheel because there was nothing like this or nothing that could be compared to the Iron Dome. So a lot of this had to be very innovative thinking of how are we doing, how are we going with this concept. And like every startup, even among us, there was a lot of people exactly like you that, I mean, not like you, that you don't believe in it, but exactly as you just mentioned, they said, how could it be that you shoot a bullet from one side and you intercept it from the other side? Technologically, it won't work. And there was a lot of debates about this, about budgets, about like every system in the beginning. But then again, the decision was made. And once everyone saw that it is so successful doing its job and intercepting the threat. By the way, today everyone, if you ask them, they invented it. Now the Iron Dome was made by a company named Rafael, and like once again, every good startup, they understood that they are very good in making missiles. But for them, they knew that if they would need to develop a radar and an engagement control centers, which those are the 3 main components of an Iron Dome system, you have a radar that needs to detect the target, the missile that is shooting in order to intercept the target, and the engagement control center where the brain of the system and the computer and everything is sitting. So they just looked for good systems that were on the shelf, and they integrated it, and this was the beginning of the Iron Dome.
How much does it cost to fire a missile? Like when you spot a missile, I heard you fire 2 missiles to intercept each target coming towards you.
Well, not really. When it comes to the Iron Dome, we usually shoot one interceptor. And in the military, I mean, without getting to the numbers, but by the way, it depends who you ask when it is the numbers. But in the military scale, this is a very cheap system. If you compare it for sure to other systems that there are around in the world, it is probably from its kind the cheapest system. But still, it is costly, and still budget and money and economy of missiles. This is something that you look at when you're doing your job. And I would say also that, we're talking about the Iron Dome, and maybe we'll get to it later, but intercepting a target or defending a site, it is not all about just the defending part of it. There is a full concept of how to deal with the rockets and missiles, and it starts on attacking those rockets and missiles even before they were shot toward you, and so on. So, yes.
How many systems do you have now? Because the Iron Dome is just one of your systems. You have the David Sling, there's other systems. Like the layer of protection, how many systems does that compose of?
Well, going back to the history in a way is that we understood that we would have to develop an Iron Dome, again, threats like rockets, but at the same time, we already understood, we also understood that we have threats that could be coming from far away. Iran, for example, and we're talking about thousands, 2,000 plus minus of kilometer, and this of 2,000 meters, and this is a much more, I would say, challenging target. It is much bigger. The explosive part of it is much bigger and dangerous, and so we understood that we need several systems in order to be able to deal with all the different threats that we have. And this is how the concept of what we call a multi-tier defense was brought into the world, and this is what we saw in the last 2 years. So the system that Israel applies is the Iron Dome, is the David Sling for a little bit further targets, the Arrow 2, and then the Arrow 3. And we could say also that during this war there was also a very significant cooperation with CENTCOM, with the Central Command of the United States, that also applied some of their systems into our area.
And the latest is the Iron Beam, which is a laser.
Yes.
You shoot down drones, missiles with laser, and it works. How did that come about? You said that you were already talking about it back in 2011, but now it's functioning.
You're right, and you know this is the. We talked about the laser for a very long time. The big advantages with the laser, first of all, it's economically. I mean, it's very, very cheap to shoot a laser. Again,
I heard it was about like $8-10.
Yeah, something like this. $12 if it is expensive. So it is a completely. I mean, it is really out of the equation if you have something like this. Of course, physics are there. There are still challenges, but in the last war we did apply it for the first time. It was just about to be sent to the Air Force to use it, but because of the war, no one waited. We just took it as it is, and we said, even though it is during testing time, we already could apply it and see what we could do with it, and it was quite successful. It intercepted tens of drones that were shot toward Israel, and the Iron Beam system would be operationally probably by the end of this year, and gradually it would get more and more into the Israeli air defense. The capabilities of it would be grown. So we are really looking forward for this, and once again to enhance our way of defending Israel.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question that's very simple for you, but still, why is all this necessary? Can you explain that to people living in a peaceful country?
Well, we all want to live in peace. This is for sure. But we also understand that, unfortunately, there are those around us. They have different plans. We know the challenge that Europe is being challenged those days, and we know that there are terrorist organizations from all kinds. And they will always try to see how could they harm us, and we need to be able also to defend ourselves. This is the nature of life, and it's better to be protected than not to be protected at all. And one of the other challenges is that you need to invest on something that sometimes you don't see it yet on your courtyard. You see it in some others. You say, well, it won't come to me. But unfortunately, those bad guys, they're looking for everyone, and they can threaten everyone. So I think that each country, of course, have to tailor-make the system that they are purchasing or developing to the threat. But I think that today, if we're talking about terrorist threat, for example, for sure, drones and small drones, this is one of the main challenges that we see worldwide. We saw it in our war. We saw it in Ukraine. This is something that is heavily being used. So it is kind of a trend, because from the bad guys' point of view, it is cheaper. You can buy it sometimes in Amazon. You don't have to develop a system or something like this. So we have to be ready for all of those things. I think worldwide, mainly in strategic installation like airports and things like this, this is something that for sure it is needed.
In Denmark, we actually have no missile defense. But the government has just allocated around $8.5 billion to a missile defense comprised of French, Norwegian, and German systems. We could have chosen the Israeli Barak MX system that can handle both long-range missiles and short-range missiles and requires less personnel to operate than the systems that we have bought. But because of the war in Gaza and the political controversy surrounding it, the left wing in Denmark did not want to buy from Israel. I'm kind of guessing that you think countries should buy Israeli. But as a soldier, what do you think of this logic where political priorities win over rational decision-making?
Well, I want to respect, of course, the decision of the Danish people and what they decided. But I always look at things as much as I can, even in Israel, within all the debates that we have. And whoever I'm speaking with, I always say, I'm look at it from a purely professional point of view. And when you look at it from a professional point of view, if I were the one that had to buy a system, I would probably buy a system that I saw it working. I saw that it is doing its job. There is a lot of experience with operating them. It is not a system that was tested in a certain environment. This is the Israeli system for sure. Have been tested under the much, or I would say under the most challenging situation, which is warfight, which is we've been attacked from seven different fronts at the same time, from Gaza, from Lebanon, from Syria, from Iraq, from Iran, from the Houthis. And we had to deal with basically 360 degrees threat, from a short range, from long range. So for sure, Israeli industry and the Israeli defense forces have a lot of experience. And when we're talking about the defense, you always ask yourself, what is the essence of the defense? What are you expecting from the defense worldwide? So I think that the first thing that you want the defense to achieve is to deny the enemy's success. You want to deny what they're trying to do. The second thing is purely to save lives. You want to save the lives of people. We said it is not only those that would be died by it, but also hurt and families and all the consequences of it. And the last thing is that you want to be able to make a decision in a calmly, as much as you can call it calmly situation. We want our leaders not to make a decision after there was a huge attack, things were destroyed, and now you know that the decision would be under stress, and usually when we make decision under stress, we make the wrong decision. So I think that once you think about those three, this is really the job of the defense. And when we're looking at Israel, we could say that this is exactly what the defense achieved during the last 2 years.
I think that's the problem in Denmark, that we neglected our defense for so many years. And since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, we had to build up our defenses again, but it's not in a calm environment. It's not in a calm political environment. It's under pressure. We are in a situation where we actually have a lot of money because we have a good economy. but it's still under pressure because everything has to be done very fast.
Yeah, you're right. And, I always used to compare it to soccer game. And I know that you're a sportsman in your background, and I know that Denmark is quite good in soccer, although last times you could do better. But in general, I always liked to see the Denmark's national team playing. So it's like, imagine yourself a soccer team. You have a very good offensive, you have a very good mid-court, you have some defense, but you don't have a goalkeeper. And your enemy decided that he's not playing anymore the soccer on the field, he's shooting long balls. And he would continuously scoring because you have a goalkeeper. So if you want to have a balanced team, you must have a good defense, a good offense. And I think this is what everyone should have, just to compare it to the sport world, literally.
Well, personally, I think it is really crazy when politicians mix all kinds of political agendas into buying military equipment. Because what you're really saying is that protecting the population, protecting infrastructure, our own infrastructure, giving our soldiers the best equipment is not top priority. There are other priorities that are more important. So I really can't understand how you can. I think it's hard for me to understand why other agendas play in a role in something that is very complicated, of course, but still the goal is simple: to protect your country. Yeah. On another subject, and it's kind of the same subject, how do you feel about the pressure against Israel after this war? You've been in the IDF for a long time, but there's all these accusations against Israel, genocide and whatnot, and I think the IDF is kind of looked upon by a lot of people as a very brutal army with no regard for civilian life. With your background in the IDF, how do you look at this narrative that's going around?
Well, it's very unfortunate, because for us, the ones that we live in Israel, we know the IDF, we know the Air Force, we know the values are being really part of how do we fight, and according of national laws, and I would say a few words about it. And also when you hear all those sayings about genocide and so on, and I always ask, let's see it from a logical point of view. In Israel, 20% of Israel are Arabs. The numbers were grown. 30% of the employees in our hospitals are Arabs, doctors, nurses, and so on. They live very, very good. In the West Bank, in the last 10, 20, 30 years, the number of Arabs were grown. When we fought against the Hezbollah in Lebanon, we fought against the Hezbollah. We didn't fight against the Lebanese people. So why Gaza is so different? I mean, why are we behaving there different? So we're not behaving different. In Gaza, the situation, and this is what I would appreciate if people would understand, there is a huge difference between the Hamas and between the Palestinian people. The IDF is not fighting the Palestinian people. The IDF is doing whatever it can not to hurt the Palestinian people. The Hamas, its way of it's a terrorist organization, and I spoke with more than one Denmark officers that were part of NATO and fought in Afghanistan and some other places, and they know also that terrorist organization, this is what they do. They shoot from hospital, they shoot from mosques. They want to see those pictures of innocent people that are being shot because it's playing for their favorite. They're using their people as human shield. This is what they're doing. And, again, going back to what happened truly is that I can give you one example. The decision, for example, of a humanitarian area for people. This was an Israeli decision because we designated...
To establish zones, humanitarian zones.
Exactly, to establish area that we could say to the people, if you go there, this is a safe area. Please go there. And it was quite amazing because when people were moving from one place to another during those humanitarian corridors, the ones that were trying to stop them were the Hamas, because the Hamas didn't want them to go to the humanitarian. And we were fighting the Hamas, who is fighting the Palestinians. And it's amazing. By the way, you could see now, after the last agreement a few weeks ago, the first thing that the Hamas did, they came out and they started to shoot and kill their own people. This is the same happened in the disembarkment in 2007. Hamas is against the Palestinians. The Palestinian Authority doesn't look at the Hamas as their good friends. So I think that, you know, it's hard for people to be into the details from far away. You see pictures and you get an image and you're being, in a way, brainwashed by those that have their own agenda. But in truth, the IDF is fighting the Hamas. Every target that is being shot, it is only a target that there is a Hamas, someone that was shooting for there, or someone that was hiding there, or someone that was having his command and control over there, and those things. And the IDF also is doing everything that he can according to the international law. You know, even calling people, telling them, hey, we are going to strike this area, you have to move. We send leaflets. We're doing as much as we can. Unfortunately, you know, in a war, there are visuals like we see. No one really wants it in Israel. No one wants to fight the Palestinian people. The story is the Hamas. Hamas is behaving like Daesh. And I hope that people will understand it and will be able to make the distinction between Hamas and the Palestinian people.
Denmark is also a small country like Israel. It's different and it's not surrounded.
A bit colder.
Yeah, it's colder. It's actually the weather is really good for November. But you're not an expert on Danish defense, but it is a small country. Like, how much air defense does a small country need? Like, obviously you have a lot, but and I'm asking you because we have this discussion about missile defense in Denmark. Can you kind of say, well, a country needs this much air defense? Is that possible to talk in general?
Well,
about that?
As you said, in general, I mean, I'm not expert in Denmark, but I do understand some things about air defense. And the first thing we could say about Denmark, that it still have the advantage of being part of NATO, and there are a lot of assets that could be shared between the NATO nations. But I think, you know, even before talking about the system, it is talking about the strategy, talking about the concept. What should be a concept of a country when you are being those are things like this are being part of your threats? The first thing that you need to look at is on your intelligence, on your way of understanding where those things are coming from, because in the time that you would have to fight it, one of the ways of fighting those things is to try to strike them before they were shot toward you, wherever they are. It could be inside Denmark, outside Denmark, or whatever. So this is the first thing. The second thing that is very needed is alert capabilities. One of the main challenges, mainly, by the way, with UAVs and small UAVs and so on, it's to be able to detect them. And so you need to think also, I mean, when you're designing your defense, you need also to think about that. How do we detect them? Do we have enough assets, means, radars, whatever it's needed in order to know that something like this is coming toward me? The other thing is, and this is the third pillar that I think should be considered, is how could we alert our population? Okay, we saw something that, I mean, we intercepted some of them before they're coming, but still there are some that are coming. Now we have a means to detect it, great. But how do we convey it to the population? Do we have the system to convey it to the population and to the other installations and so on? Do we have sirens? Do we have applications and things like that? In Israel, for example,
bomb shelters.
Yeah, and this would be the fourth thing. So in Israel, For alert, we have an application that if something is coming toward you, so your application would go off. There are sirens
on your phone,
on your phone, and so on. Yes, and so alert, and alert means the way of distribute them. This is very important. And the last thing, really, it's what you've said. The passive, what we call a passive defense, is having shelters in Israel. In every house, you need one room that it would be a concrete room, so it is shelter. Therefore, in a very short time, you move from your salon to this room, and this is, we know, looking at the last war, that a lot of lives were saved by that. So when you have all this concept of how you strike, what is the intelligence, alert, active defense, passive defense, this is, I think, a way that every country, including Denmark, should look at it and to make sure that they have the means to apply all this overall concept and by that minimizing the threat and minimizing the effect of the threat.
Doron, I could talk to you for a long time. It's very, very interesting. We're out of time now, but thank you for coming and sharing your history and your experience with the Israeli defense system. It is the defense is a hot topic in Danish politics because we have to rebuild. So I hope the listeners could use your experience and input. Thank you very, very much. Det var alt for dagens Borgerligt Tabloid. Mit navn er Joachim.
Can I also say
yes,
thank
you
you?
can. Yeah, yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Thank you for inviting me, and I'm going back to soccer because I always like to see the Denmark team.
Good.
And I wish you good luck in the Mondial. And so thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Doron. Det var alt for dagens Borgerligt Tabloid. Mit navn er Joachim B. Olsen, og jeg har lavet dagens program sammen med journalist Maria Asmine Dam og producer Theis Sargo. Tak fordi I lyttede med. Vi er tilbage på fredag.